So I'm just going to present my Sheridan 2019 animation portfolio. I was going to make this earlier, but I'm a dawdler, so I dawdled, and I didn't do it until now. So without further ado, here's my score sheet. So I ended up getting an 87 out of 100, and the cutoff for domestic applicants was 84. To get on the wait list, you'd have to get 82 to 83. So all in all, I did alright. So these are the life drawings. 2 long poses. The first one's 10 minutes, the other one is probably 5, I think. So what they're looking for mainly for these long poses are structure, I think. I think this is probably my weakest area in terms of the portfolio, because I wasn't really familiarized with the anatomy enough. So yeah, these are Conte and charcoal on newsprint, which is what you're usually supposed to draw life drawings with. Try not to draw on like printer paper. These are my short gestural life drawings. So here you want to convey like a really good sense of movement, I think. Like you don't have to flesh out the forms that great, you just have to demonstrate that you have a good idea of them. I didn't really go to life drawing as much as I should have. Like I could have used resources at home, so yeah, I'll just include links to those, to resources, like YouTube channels in the description. And there's a lot of anatomy books and life drawing books out there, you should probably make the most out of those as much as possible. Yeah, I think what I got for these I was a little too generous. I think 7 out of 10 is probably more valid, but whatever. Okay, next up, my hand drawings. So the action this year was pressing a button. Usually people did the index finger pressing action. I don't think the profs really care about the uniqueness of the action, just so long as it fulfills the criteria, as long as you demonstrate a good understanding of the hand's structure and form. So the 2 poses should be sufficiently different from each other that they don't look like the same thing. Because if your first hand and your second hand don't look like they've moved at all besides touching the button, then there's kind of an issue there, because you're not demonstrating that you can manipulate the forms of the hand to make them do what you want them to. That was really poorly worded. I just hope you get the gist. Next up is my character rotation. So I did a samurai fox furry, my forte. Here they just mainly want to see that your character remains the same throughout the entire rotation, as well as character design. Okay, no, that's probably the more important thing here. Your character's design. It should be simple enough that it could be animated. Remember, you're designing a character for animation, not for a comic or a video game. You're designing a character for animation, and that it's simple enough to be animated over and over again. Don't add unjustified details that end up making it just look like a DeviantArt OC. I think that goes without saying, but some people don't recognize this. Yeah, just don't be afraid to simplify your character down to basic shapes and forms, because in the end that's one of the fundamental parts of character design. I feel like I'm just spewing bullshit, but I hope this helps someone. So this year, instead of a walk cycle, I think that was last year's, we had to do an object animation. Most people interpreted it as a non-anthropomorphic object being animated. You can give it human traits, just not eyes, arms, etc. So make sure you just familiarize yourself with the principles of animation, mostly squash and stretch and anticipation. I don't remember any other ones, but they're not really expecting a masterpiece out of you. They just want to see that you have some sort of fundamental understanding. So one of the main things I struggled with here was the consistency of the volume, because the bag, other people noticed that it kind of lost and gained volume at different points of the animation. It doesn't have to be super clean or anything. It could be a little rough, I'm pretty sure. This is the most heavily weighted section of the portfolio. So they give you 2 characters, I think, to choose from. I chose the clown, and our theme this year for the storyboard was surprise. The story I did was the clown robs a bank, finds a kid with balloons, takes the balloons and uses them to escape, but the police officer chasing him shoots him down. So the main things you should be looking out for, and you should be looking out for a lot of things here, because this is the section that tends to bring most people down. Like, they'll have a otherwise really great portfolio, and then bam, you get a 15 out of 25 storyboard and you just don't get in. But I think the main thing you want to ensure is the clarity of the story. Like, the profs should be able to look at your storyboard without reading your captions and understand what's going on. That ends up ruining a lot of people's storyboards otherwise. You should definitely revise as much as you can based on other people's feedback. To add on to that, don't break any storyboarding rules. One I know of is the 180-degree rule. Let's use the clown as an example. In one panel he might be facing left, and then if the 180 rule is broken, he's going to be facing right. That tends to confuse audiences. Another big thing, staying on model. So you gotta make sure that they look pretty similar to the character's model sheet. Well, lastly but not least, variety of camera shots. You should be, I guess that's where part of your creativity comes in, your ability to make use of several camera shots. I think that probably was one of the reasons I got 23 out of 25 on this, was purely because of the variety of camera shots I used. My layouts. This year we were supposed to draw an office for the interior space. I think profs usually would rather prefer 2-point rather than 1-point perspective, but I think that's just a rumor I heard. I don't have any evidence to back that up. So, some tips for your interior layout. You should give it some sort of character. It shouldn't just be an office. It should be more than that. It should be a character's office. A character who has a personality that would affect the appearance of their office. Another thing I think probably is line quality. They probably want it to be refined a little, not messy and sketchy. And you should probably make the lines of the objects closer to the camera thicker in order to make it less confusing for the viewer. And then my outdoor layout. The prompt for this was a natural landscape with trees, rocks, and mountains. But the same stuff I said for the interior layout applies here too. So I did a kind of interstate highway kind of feel, not Nevada, Arizona-ish kind of feel. The primary thing to be thinking about when you're doing the layout, that the things don't look out of perspective, because that ends up messing up the general look of your layout. Anyway, moving on. So that's it for all the mandatory pieces, and now I have my 5 personal pieces. I've been told that by a teacher, your personal pieces are where you actually really convince them that you're unique. So they're definitely not something to be overlooked. So my first personal piece was a 3D sculpture. I used polymer clay. But yeah, it's not harmful to demonstrate that when you make a sculpture, you're demonstrating knowledge of 3D forms. You're able to transfer your knowledge of drawing characters on paper over to the physical world. Next, I have my digital art compilation. I don't really do a lot of traditional painting, so this is kind of where I tried to demonstrate that I'm kind of capable of that, of using color and shading, even though I'm really not. It's just But yeah, all this stuff is it makes you, so really don't skimp out on it. Next up, sketchbook. So this is kind of a quintessential part of your portfolio, even though it's not required. Most people end up submitting sketchbook stuff, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, they just want to see if you like to draw in your spare time. It's really invaluable, and you should probably almost always submit a sketchbook. I think they ideally want a mix of observational and stuff that you think of from your sketchbook. My other personal piece was a concept art compilation. So This is concept art for a Mongolian inspired fantasy setting ish. So here we have character designs, character concept art, more character concept art, but for like the NPC kind of character. Like it would, if you're planning on doing visual development and concept art for your personal piece, it probably would help to look at examples to get an idea of what they do. Like like Disney art books, DreamWorks art books, like the movie art books, as well as online stuff you see from professional artists. And then my last personal piece was an opposite view of the office layout. I kind of just ran out of time, so I was applying to Seneca College too for animation, and they required 2 drawings of the same room. So because I was running out of time, this was kind of my only option to use for my other personal piece. I guess it demonstrates that, like, I don't know what to say about it. Showing that you can draw the same room but from another angle, I think that's a little invaluable. I don't know what they saw in this, but hey, I got 9 out of 10. And yeah, that's it for my actual portfolio. But I have some tips for any future applicants and animation hopefuls, not necessarily for the portfolio itself, but just in general. So a lot of people end up starting kind of late, and you don't want to do that. Like, you should definitely start before the last month. I know there's a lot of artists like myself who have problems with like intrinsic motivation, and like they'll leave stuff to the last minute even though they really have no reason to. I'd say you should probably ideally start messing around 6 months before the deadline. Like, you can make your personal pieces before Sheridan issues out the actual portfolio guidelines. So that kind of saves you a lot of time depending on how big your personal pieces are and stuff. It allows you to like gather up stuff you need. And also, another really helpful thing to do when you start early is to look at last year's portfolio and then do like mock-ups. Like, even though they'll probably not be of any use in the final portfolio, but they'll really help you get an idea of what you're supposed to do if you end up like asking other people for feedback about it and stuff. Second really important thing is don't be afraid of feedback. Like that could definitely cripple you. So okay gamers, story time. So I have this friend, there's this really good friend of mine who also happens to be one of the best artists I know, like in person at least, but one of the best artists I know, and she was really gunning for Sheridan, also CalArts, but mostly Sheridan. So, but one of the big things was that she was afraid of feedback, in a sense, like a combination of being headstrong and like genuinely being being afraid of feedback. She can acknowledge that it was valid, but she just doesn't like getting like negative feedback, which is understandable. I think most of us have that like issue. So she ended up not submitting a lot of her stuff for feedback. She submitted a few things for feedback, but not everything, and especially not the storyboard, which I think is what ended up getting her rejected in the end. No, she got 81 out of 100, and the waitlist score was 82 to 83. The cutoff was 84, so she was 1 point below the cutoff. She was 1 point below the waiting list score. Moral of the story is just really one way or another, you have to learn to kind of try to let go of that bad feeling you get when you get negative feedback. It is crushing, speaking from experience, but you otherwise that impedes you in the long run, even after the portfolio. She ended up getting into CalArts anyway, and she's going there now. Third tip, there's a lot of really good groups for applying to Sheridan out there. One of the main ones I can think of is Sheridan Animation Hopefuls. That's a Facebook group that comes around every year for people who are looking to apply to Sheridan. So they have a lot of good resources on hand usually, and everyone's willing to give feedback. So it's kind of invaluable. Like, you can make a really critical error and not know anything about it until someone on that group tells you that you're like violating one of the guidelines or something. So yeah, go join that if you're looking to apply. It doesn't matter the year. They have groups for every year. So yeah. In the same vein, you should be going to portfolio days too. I mean, sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not, depending on who's giving you like the review and from which school. But like, it's definitely better than nothing. As long as you can go, I think you should go. No matter which school you're looking for. There's a National Portfolio Day, I think that's across North America. Like, you don't have to go to Sheridan's booth at National Portfolio Day. You can go to any of the schools that offer animation, and they can still give you feedback. It might not be great feedback, but depending on where you are, it can definitely help. Like, you can go to CalArts' booth, or Ringling's, stuff like that, you know. And if you can make it, obviously, you should go to Sheridan's Portfolio Review Day. So, like, if you have to drive 6 hours, you don't really have to go, but sometimes it's definitely invaluable. Like, just because the profs I got there weren't really great, you can definitely get a good prof. And also, like, you can talk to students too, they'll help you. In my personal experience, I went to a portfolio class, and without the class, I don't think I would have gotten in, because before I went to the class, I think like my skills were really low, and by the time the deadline would have rolled around, I would have had like no chance in hell would I have gotten anywhere close to 80%. I probably would have ended up getting maybe 60. But yeah, I was really lucky to be able to go to a really good class with a really good teacher who was frank and like gave like critical feedback. Did it hurt sometimes? Yes, but like otherwise, if she didn't push me to get me where I was now, I don't think I'd be here making this video, talking about my portfolio. So yeah, obviously a lot of people probably might not be in that position to go to a portfolio class and like get a teacher to help them progress. But if that option is open to you, I think you should definitely take it. And if you were like me before March of 2018 and you had this sort of hope that you can go to Sheridan despite not being a great artist, despite not having much motivation to draw, despite outputting art at a pretty slow rate, this I think is probably the most crucial piece of information. This is probably the most crucial piece of advice I can give. You have to draw every day, or at least you have to try to draw every day. You should probably be getting 7 pages of your sketchbook filled every week, ideally, if you want to get from the point you are at now to the point where you can get it. Like, without that volume of work, my art wouldn't have progressed to the point where it is now, where I can actually confidently say I'm on an equal footing with all the other people that got into Sheridan. I still don't think so right now, though. Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing you should be looking out for. I know there's a lot of you out there who are doing the same thing I was doing a year ago. So yeah, that was my Sheridan portfolio. If you want to tell me I spewed a lot of pretentious bullshit, please do, because I probably did. And yeah, if you have like feedback to leave for people, better feedback to leave for people, leave that in the comments, because I'm sure what I said wasn't that great. But yeah, I definitely hope this helped a little. So yeah, see ya.